Hi, my name is Keisha, and I'm a musician, and I also am a music marketing expert. But today I just wanted to talk about something a little more personal, just because I think there are a lot of people struggling with this issue, and I kind of wanted to provide some encouragement and support. Um, so I I'm actually just over a week, coming up on 2 weeks post surgery to remove fibroid tumors. And fibroid tumors, for those of you who don't know, are usually benign tumors that grow in the uterus. And it's actually very common. A lot of women have them, but a lot of women don't really experience any kind of symptoms, and they don't cause problems for a lot of women. But for some women, they do cause a lot of problems and they can get quite large. So, my experience with this problem kind of led me to seek out support in like Facebook groups and such, and doing a lot of research. And in doing that research, I kind of found out, I guess I've been living in a bubble, or I'm just a optimist, and I assume the best in people. But I just found out that there are a lot of disparities in the quality of healthcare that is provided to women as compared to men. And it's coming from a lot of different levels. So it just kind of made me think about my own healthcare experiences and question whether or not the questionable experiences I've had was due to some sort of bias because of my gender. And they've even found disparities based on race. So women of color are more likely to receive worse health care. And it's a little bit upsetting, but I just wanted to, I guess, use my platform to talk about the issue. One, so that people are aware of it. And I think the more that people are aware of that there is an issue, the better we can do to fix the issue. And I'm talking about healthcare specifically in the United States. That is where I've received uh, like 100% of my healthcare. So, and I was in the military, and I got out, but my husband is still in the military. So most of my healthcare has been provided by military providers since I was 18. And I think some of the issues that I had, I assumed that it was because of the nature of military healthcare. So, not to knock military healthcare, but the military just in general tries to make things as systematic as possible. And I think in a lot of ways that is good, but sometimes things fall through the cracks, like because not everybody fits in a perfect box that can be gone through, that can go through like on a conveyor belt, which is kind of how things work. Is the military has to shuffle a lot of people through the healthcare system in the most efficient way possible. So I've really had to learn how to advocate for myself with my healthcare providers, and it just kind of, I guess, was a little bit of a relief to find out that some of it was not my fault, because a lot of times, especially when it came to specific like women's reproductive health issues, I felt like I was not being taken seriously. And this was both by military doctors and civilian doctors. I have been stationed in smaller bases where a lot of times if you need to see a specialist, even a gynecologist, they refer you to a provider that's not in the military system. So with the tumors specifically, I have been dealing with the symptoms for about 3 years, and I've seen 5 gynecologists specifically. That does not count my primary care providers that I had to go to get referrals to see the gynecologist. So I believe in total it would be about 8 healthcare providers that I've seen specifically for this issue. And the first, and I'm talking about just the gynecologist, so that's 5. The first, well, I would say the person that diagnosed me with the fibroids was very attentive and listened to my issues and my concerns. And I don't know if he understood the impact that it had on my life and my well-being, but he was at least empathetic, and referred me to another gynecologist who had more experience with this issue. And the next few doctors that I saw after that kind of blew me off, because at the time they could only see one tumor, and it wasn't as big as it could be. Like I said, the tumors could get quite large, sometimes the size of like a melon, or larger, making like a woman appear to be like 40 weeks pregnant, which is like a full-term pregnancy. So mine were not that large. My largest one was about a softball size. I had 8. The smallest one was like a pea size, and there were kind of every size in between. So they weren't that large, but together they made me the size of a 20-week pregnancy, which when you're not 20-week pregnant and you stay that way for years, it can be quite uncomfortable. And a lot of my symptoms were interfering with my everyday life. So my quality of life was not very good. And one of the symptoms is bleeding a lot. And I became anemic, which also impacted the quality of my life because I was exhausted all the time. And I actually saw other doctors because of my lack of energy and was told that it was in my head. I actually had a doctor prescribe me antidepressants because she felt like my lack of energy was because I was depressed, which is another issue with women's health and their relationship with their healthcare providers that is very common. A lot of times women's complaints are attributed to being overdramatic or depression or anxiety. So a lot of times women, when they have a physical ailment, will get diagnosed with a mental or behavioral health problem, which is not necessarily true. Like you might be anxious because you don't feel well and nobody believes you. Like that doesn't mean that there's there's not actual anxiety or depression, but the reason for the anxiety and depression is that nobody's taking you seriously and you don't feel well, which can be quite frustrating. So I actually, it's really frustrating to think back and just, I don't know. I just have a lot of experiences, both specifically with the fibroids and, the issues that they caused that were related, and just other times that I've had health concerns and I brought them to my healthcare providers and I was not taken seriously, and I was told that it was in my head or it was my fault or that I just needed to take better care of myself. And like I said, in doing research on the fibroids and their causes, I actually came across a lot of other research that was done on women's health in general. And it just it made me feel a little bit better knowing that it wasn't me, but it also made me frustrated knowing that I was not receiving the best quality of care because of people's specific biases. And I just wanted to bring this to light. I mean, especially now that there's, a virus going around, and I just wanted to let you know that if you feel like your healthcare providers are not listening to your concerns with your health, then you should definitely look for another provider if that's not available to you, if that's not an option. Which with most, just by the way, with most insurance, you can change your primary care provider. You can request a second, third, fourth, fifth, however many opinions. But if for some reason that's not made available to you, most hospitals and clinics have a patient advocate that you can speak to and just voice your concerns. And I think the more that people stand up for themselves, and I'm not just talking to women who might directly be experiencing this issue, but also to men. Like, if you have a woman in your life who has a healthcare concern and you feel like she's getting frustrated because she's not being taken seriously, I mean, at the very least, you could be empathetic and understand where she's coming from. Which, I mean, my husband actually was the reason why I sought out a fifth opinion, because the fourth gynecologist that I saw essentially told me that I needed to suck it up or get a hysterectomy, which neither was an option for me. I didn't want to continue living the way I was, and I didn't want a hysterectomy because I didn't feel like it was medically necessary. So, and just, I guess, another sidebar, there are many options for fibroid treatment that aren't just birth control and hysterectomy. There's a lot of stuff in between that you can do. So I would encourage you, if you do have fibroids specifically, to do your research and go to the doctor with questions and go over each treatment option and figure out, what is the best course of action for you, specifically with your case, with your goals, with your, family planning and your belief system and everything, like taking all of that into account, which is what the fifth doctor that I saw did. He actually went over all of the treatment options, and we talked about, what I felt like would work, what he thought was best for me, and why he thought certain options weren't best for me. And, it was the first doctor that I went to that asked how this condition was affecting my daily life. Like, how did this affect the quality of my life? And that was the first time that I was asked that. So I really think a lot of times, and just like I said, I'm an optimist. I like to give people the benefit of the doubt. So I really think, just if you are a healthcare provider, just keeping in mind that you're seeing somebody who does not feel well, and they're looking for help. So if you can understand the effect that whatever they're seeing you for has on their life, then maybe you can at least treat them with some dignity and respect, because talking down to somebody or telling them that they're tired because they're depressed without looking at their medical history, without talking to them about what else is going on, is just lazy, and that's unacceptable to me. And like I said, I've been told that several times, not just for conditions related to the fibroids, but for other conditions. And I really think that we can do better. And for anybody that has had negative experiences with your healthcare providers, I just wanted to provide some support and let you know that you're not the only one. And also that there is something that you can do about it. Like I said, you can fire your doctor and get a new doctor. You can go to the patient's advocate at your clinic or hospital. I believe some insurance companies might also have that available. You can file complaints. But if you do nothing, then it continues to stay the same. So I hope this was helpful to somebody. If at the very least it was informative. informative, and I hope you have a great day. Thanks for watching. Bye.